Welcome to the show. Thanks for joining in another week. Have a great show planned for you today. Later on, I'll have with me Gordie Longshaw. We'll be talking all about his longtime friend John Havlicek, who sadly passed away in the last week. Great Boston Celtics legend. We'll talk other Ohio Valley sports and a little bit about Gordie himself. But first, we'll start with some of our usual features. And it's great to be here back on the set on the show. Had a rerun last week because of the Easter Seals telethon. 1 week out of every year, my studio here becomes the Easter Seals telethon studio. So the whole set gets taken down. Panhandle Cleaning and Restoration comes in, does a great job taking the set down, putting it back up for us. But Easter Seals, wonderful organization, and the Ohio Valley was good enough to raise over $100,000 for Easter Seals again this year through the telethon. So thanks to all of you who contributed to that great cause. But it is good to be back here on the set. Speaking of things going on around the Valley, I want to mention the Elks organization, another great organization that does so many things, and I got to experience some of that firsthand over the past week. My daughter competed in the Elks national hoop shoot. She had won the first 5 rounds to qualify for the national competition in Chicago, and man, was it first class. I mean, they paid for our flights there for my wife and myself, my daughter. They, picked us up. They, treated us to all the meals and shuttles, tours of Chicago and everything. And then this week was the Elks, the local Elks Lodge 28 here in Wheeling's youth banquet. And I didn't get to attend that because my son had a baseball game. My daughter and wife came home and told me how wonderful that was and how many kids that they recognized, not just in basketball, but also in soccer and for academic essays and other academic achievements and just so many different things. And it's an organization that's oftentimes overlooked, but Jeff Miller, who heads up the youth activities, and the rest of the crew there that have been around for a long time, guys like Ted Hess, Joe Marshlinsky, and people do such a wonderful job with that organization. And just really want to thank them for all they do, especially for the youth here in the local area that get so many opportunities to do things both academically and athletically. Of course, they're the group that gives the Athlete of the Month every single month for Ohio County and Marshall County that you see in the newspaper, and just really does a lot for the kids. So thanks to all those folks that are involved with the Elks, and really special folks that do a lot for the kids on not just a local level but also a national level. There's a new country music festival that's coming up this summer, the Blame My Roots Festival. It's going to take place at Valley View Campground right across from the Jamboree in the Hills campsite. Of course, Jamboree in the Hills on at least a 1-year hiatus here. Won't be taking place this summer. So for that very same weekend, the folks at Valley View Campground have decided to do their own festival. Now, people like Trace Adkins, Joe Diffie, and others over 3 days in July, the same weekend that the Jamboree in the Hills is normally held. And a lot of people typically camp out there at Valley View Campground, and it's kind of a tradition for them. So they thought, why not bring in our own music festival this year and see how that goes? And they're expecting a huge crowd. I mean, thousands of people to come out for this, and you can get tickets now. They're already available, and you can camp out and have a great time. Just remember, be safe, and it's a good idea to get a campground spot there. Get a site so you don't have to worry about driving home or anything like that. But if you do, get a designated driver. But it should be a great music festival, and I'm glad to hear they're doing that. Jamboree in the Hills has been a staple here in the Valley for 40 years or more, and a lot of people disappointed to see that it's not happening this summer. But on the same note, it's really, I think, something more about the people and the relationships than it is even the music itself. I mean, it's great to go see the high-level country music performers and some great entertainment that's been there over the years, but the camaraderie that the folks seem to have and the relationships and some of the people they see just that 1 week out of every year when they camp out and see the same people at the campgrounds and things like that is really, in a lot of ways, just as important to those folks, or maybe even more important in some instances. So glad to see that they're putting that on against the Blame My Roots Festival, and they've got a Facebook page, and you can check it out and find out where to get tickets and all those things, and I think people will really enjoy it. Give a legal tip here this week as well, and that is that you can't say things about people that aren't true on social media. It could be defamation, which could be against the law, and you could get yourself into real trouble. And that's important to remember, that, I always say a good rule of thumb on social media is the same that perhaps my grandmother used to always say, and that was passed down to me through my parents, which is if you don't have something nice to say, don't say it at all. It's a good rule for social media. And you can also get into legal trouble, particularly when you say things that aren't true. There's different types of statements. There are factual statements, and then there are opinions. Of course, an opinion is, I think that such and such TV show is a lousy show. That's your opinion. But if you state a fact, state something that you saying, hey, this is true, I saw so-and-so steal whatever, 3 candy bars from the local convenience store, and that's not true, you're just making that up, you know, that could get you into real trouble. That could be a crime. So, you know, really be careful about what you say on social media. I've seen people putting some things on there that they're putting forth as fact that are not indeed true. They're just flat out false. Really bad idea, because not only is it hurtful, not only is it not Christian thing to do, but also it could be against the law as well. I'll give you a quote this week, and this one comes from an Ohio Valley legend, someone we'll be talking about as the show goes on. That's John Havlicek. Played, of course, his high school sports at Bridgeport, went on to be a star at Ohio State and then the Boston Celtics. And he said, if you are honest with yourself and can look into a mirror and believe that you have given 100%, you should feel proud. If you cannot, then there's more work to be done. Great quote there from John Havlicek, you know, and so much truth to it that you can't do any more than your best. If you give it 100%, you've done all you can do. You've done your best. No one can ask more of you. Let the chips fall where they may if you've given 100%. But if you haven't given 100%, then that's when you have work to be done, because you're not giving all that you can, and you could have done more. So particularly great quote there, and we'll be talking more about him, as I said. We're going to take a break. Then I'll have with me Gordie Longshaw, who'll be talking about his longtime friend John Havlicek, who passed away recently. Stay with us here on the Jamie Bordas Show.
Country music lives on at the 2019 Blame My Roots Festival, starring Trace Adkins, Tyler Farr, Joe Diffie, Whiskey Myers, Lindsay L., Gabby Barrett, and more. July 18th through the 20th at Valley View Campgrounds in Belmont, Ohio. Tickets now at BlameMyRootsFestival.com.
You earned it. Let us help you save it. Belmont Savings Bank. Focused on your future.
Welcome back to the show. This is my favorite time each week when I have a guest with me, and this week's no different. I have with me Gordie Longshaw, Bridgeport native and longtime friend of John Havlicek, who recently passed away. Of course, great Bridgeport athlete, went on to start Ohio State and then for the Boston Celtics, winning 8 NBA championships. Just unbelievable number of championships, NBA Finals MVP, and all kinds of other accolades, NBA Hall of Famer. And Gordie, I really appreciate you being here on the show.
Well, thanks for being here.
I know it was a loss for, you know, not just the basketball world, but particularly for people like you who had friendships with John Havlicek and his family through the years. And, you know, picture here, a guide of you with John Havlicek and his wife just some years back. Little darker hair that you had there than Gordie, but you know, somebody that you had developed a friendship with over the course of your lifetime, and tough to see friends go.
It is, and even in uniform or not, John was a classy guy, and well respected, well honored, and it's just sad that Parkinson's took a toll on his life at the end there.
Yeah.
But missed by everyone.
You know, one of the things that some folks may not realize, some people may, like, you know, he played basically, I was too young to remember. You know, I was born in '75, so, you know, you talk about a guy like this who's a legend, but I never really had the opportunity to watch play. But, you know, just in reading and hearing people like you talk about him, not just a great basketball player, just a great all-around athlete.
Yes, three sports All-State. Excelled in baseball, played shortstop, 6'5", which is big at that time. I played at High State baseball, made the conference twice, didn't go out his senior year and focus on basketball, and drafted by the Cleveland Browns. Matter of fact, in high school, he was a quarterback when the first time we beat Martins Ferry in 37 years in 1956. And Woody Hayes won him as a quarterback, which is unusual for Woody because he ran the ball all the time. But John's mother preferred him to play basketball, not football. So Woody told Fred Taylor, the head basketball coach at the time, come on out to High State and play for basketball, and hopefully you change your mind about football. But West Virginia was contended because our principal, Gene Wimmenar, our coach, came from West Virginia, and Jerry West just played in the national championship in '59, and John felt maybe it'd be best for him to go to West Virginia. But on the team was Jerry Lucas, a 3-time All-American, and Bobby Knight, Larry Siegfried, and they came on the island to play some basketball and convinced John to go to High State, and that's how John ended up playing at Ohio State.
Brought a little show and tell here today, which is great. And picture here, you and Jerry Lucas here, and you were telling me earlier, Jerry Lucas, what a great memory he had. Not just a good athlete, but just a brilliant guy. It sounds like.
Yes, John told me on a 4-point grade average, the average grade point on the basketball team was like 3.5. Of course, Jerry excelled, but John was very intelligent, and so was Bobby Knight. A lot of people don't realize, but a very smart guy. But Jerry was very intelligent.
Yeah, that's one person people forget a little bit. Bobby Knight on that 1960 championship team at Ohio State, and of course I think went on to become the first person to win a national championship both as a player and as a coach.
That's correct.
I think when he won that championship, I want to say it was in '87 in Indiana.
You might be right.
It may have been before that though. I just can't remember. But anyway, when he won his first as a title at Indiana as a head coach. First person to be player and coach to win the title, and just you talk about those guys, Havlicek, Lucas, Knight on that team like that, pretty impressive, to have guys that went on to do what they did.
Yes.
What you were talking about, the other sports, and you brought a couple other photos here from days growing up, and I thought this one was pretty interesting as well. This is I guess looks like some type of either Legion team or high school team.
Bridgeport at the time had a Legion team, 227, post 227, and my brother-in-law, Kelly Conway, and Joey Maroon got in touch with me the other day, Dr. Maroon. Of course, he played at Indiana, All-American football player, and Havlicek, and that was a great team. They was runner-up in the state, I think it was.
It's pretty amazing when you look at that. You mentioned Dr. Maroon, who played football at Indiana. Of course, went on to become a world-class neurosurgeon up in Pittsburgh, and to have, talk about guys that are, great football players, great basketball players, then they're on the same baseball team. I mean, it's tough to beat a team like that.
The talent in High Valley was excelled then. I mean, it's just, I don't know what water they drank, but everybody had great athletes at the time.
The
competition was there, I'll tell you that much.
Well, and the thing that people, sometimes forget is that the three-sport athlete was more common back then too. Today, young kids tend to specialize at an earlier age. They play some of the same sports year-round, things like that. Back then, I mean, you're playing these different sports. You're going from one to the other. There's really but you're transitioning to a whole different skill set, really.
That's true. Yeah.
It's tough to do. What was Havlicek like, away from the court? People watch him play, particularly people that are your age or closer to it, but, what was he like off the court?
Very shy, very reserved to himself. I mean, we had some fun, but John was very shy and reserved, and sometimes his wife Beth would call and say, "Hey, loosen him up, take him out." Of course, I'm a good guy to have fun, but very strict and serious about every issue. And, his dad ran a grocery store, and he says, "I can't believe Ohio State's going to give you a scholarship. Anybody can put a basketball through a hoop. Run a family on 3% income on a grocery store, that's good." But he couldn't believe that, you could sell. Of course, he did well with the finances as well.
You had a chance to go up to Boston to see him play, I guess. What was that like, going to the Garden, the old Boston Garden?
The old Garden was great. I mean, some of the people took eggs and threw them on the court, and Raleigh, and it was downtown by the subway, the environment, the Boston people, blue-collar people, and of course basketball and Red Auerbach and all the famous teams. And it was a thrill to be there. A lot of fun. Yeah.
We need to take a break. When we come back, I'll continue speaking with Gordie Longshaw. We'll talk a little bit about some of the other Bridgeport legends and growing up here in the Valley and seeing all these athletes going to do such great things, and about some of the things Gordie's been able to do himself. Stay with us here on the Jamie Bordas Show.
When reviewing your oil and gas offers or royalty check statements, do you wonder, am I being offered a fair amount? Do I feel comfortable reading the statement? Do I have peace of mind? If you answered no to these questions, you need Bordas Mineral Management. Our passion is helping mineral owners protect and expand their mineral wealth. Our examiners tell you whether you're being treated fairly and getting paid what is rightfully yours. Bordas Mineral Management. Be protected. Have peace of mind.
Hi, I'm Mitch Vingle with Wheelhouse Creative, but you may remember me from my days covering the Mountaineers. Every Thursday evening at 7 o'clock, I'll be hosting Off the Record, a series of sports shows featuring the very best personalities. And don't forget, Thursday is Burger Night at Generations. Check out their delicious hamburgers and their famous pierogies. And remember, it's all off the record.
Welcome back to the show. I've been speaking with my guest this week, Gordie Longshaw. We've been talking about his longtime friend, John Havlicek, made his fame with the Boston Celtics, who passed away in the last week, Bridgeport legend. And, Gordie, a lot of legends to come out of that area. Bridgeport and Lansing, of course, this billboard was up for a long time on the interstate on I-70, talking about, John Blatnick, Bill Jobko, Joe and Phil Necro, John Havlicek, Bobby Douglas. I mean, so many guys that come out of one, a little area there. Amazing.
Yes, it is amazing. And they're all from Lansing, and that's hard to believe too, which is part of Bridgeport. And John Blackney played for Philadelphia Phillies, and Bill Jopko played for Ohio State and never lost a Big Ten game. And Joe Necro, outstanding pitcher for the Astros, and his brother Phil, Hall of Famer himself, John Havlicek, and Bobby Douglas, Olympic coach and Olympian in 64 and 68 as an athlete, representing Oklahoma State. Yeah, you look around and say, man, how they do it?
You look at guys like that, and I always think that being around successful people, helps you in some ways become successful yourself, because the more people around each other and they're having success, and you look at someone like you who's went on to become an educator, county commissioner, have a business for a long time, city advertisers that you've had here in the Valley for decades now, and to compete and play with these guys and be around them and stuff. I mean, I think it helps.
It does help. That's one thing about sports. It makes you competitive, and coming out of competition, you're a better person. Not just as a character, learning about L's and W, realizing life is not a smooth road, and you might not like your coach. You might not like your boss someday. So it makes you be subject to things that you need to grow with. And being with the competitions and educators I've been exposed to, I think it made me a better person as well as other athletes.
You were a pretty darn good athlete in your day yourself, and continue to play a little baseball from time to time. You got your card here, and this is the Pirates fantasy camp here not too long ago. Zoom on this. Let's show Gordie here in his Pirates uniform. Come in as tight as we can on this, and let's show Gordie here. And I like your pictures. Even got the Bordas and Bordas sign in the outfield behind it. That was very.
I thought I'd do some advertising. My agent hadn't sent you a bill yet, but you'll get a bill for it.
There you go. But it's your cards even says outfield, and it's got your stats on the back and everything. But that has to be fun to do things like that still. I mean, you're in your 70s. You're still out there on the field playing.
Well, like it says, it's fantasy, and someday I might have to grow up. But in my mind, I think I can still do it, and it's a lot of fun. And most of the guys are older that try to do this. And the first year I did play, my old high school coach, Mike Rose, was the umpire. So the fellowship is there.
Now, I heard that, not too long ago in the last couple of years, you made a pretty nice over-the-shoulder catch out there in the outfield, too.
I did. It was the defense play of the week, and I got lucky in right field and caught this long drive, went to the wall. But, yeah.
You got to meet some pretty cool people, too, in baseball on the way. Here's you and Andrew McCutcheon, of course, big-time fan
Yes.
favorite for the Pirates, and of course now with the Phillies. But you know, really cool to be involved with that. And I know you like to go down to spring training and
Yeah.
check out the Pirates. And
Yeah.
what do you think? I mean, you know, it started off the year strong, but then, you know, the 8-game losing streak, but then get back on sweep the Rangers. So, you know, what do you think the rest of the season holds for the Pirates?
Well, it's a long season and started out strong. And normally they do sometimes, but there's some young guys. We'll have to wait and see. To tell you the truth, James, I don't know what to expect.
Reynolds off to a big hitting
Yes.
streak to start his career, so kind of exciting there. And yeah, you got to get guys a lot of injuries too early in the year.
That's true. You know, look at the Yankees. A lot of players out.
Oh heck, I think at
They're
one point
hitting
the Yankees have had 10 injuries or
It
something.
was up to 17 one time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So tough year for them in some ways. I want to ask you about, you know, just the Valley sports, you know, and you know, you look at a school like Bridgeport. You know, we've had declining population in the Valley for, you know, really the last several decades, and it's tough for a small town like Bridgeport, small school, to kind of keep it going. But a lot of pride there in that community. And you look at Bridgeport, you know, and Martins Ferry and Bel Air and Shady Side on the Ohio side of the river, and a lot of pride there. But you starting to see schools that are not making it. Bishop Donahue gone, of course. Bel Air, St. John's about to be gone. You know, what do you think as you look at those types of things? You know, some of those very proud schools from when you were growing up and, you know, not making it.
It's sad, you know, the enrollment back in my time, if we went to school, and any of their schools would be 150 kids or 100 students. Now it's down to 50 or 75. And so less students, less taking part in sports, less competition. It's also in the classroom. There's no competition going on to make you a better student. So it's hard to realize that we're not what we used to be. There's hope. The Valley's growing economic-wise, and hopefully we will bring people back to the Valley, but the school enrollment's down, and so it plays effects on everything else.
No doubt. You know, it affects business too. I mentioned you've got City Advertisers, and have had that for a long time. And maybe just tell the folks what City Advertisers is and what you do.
Okay, it's a small shop down there in Bridgeport. Been there since 1972, so I'm telling my age again. But I sell advertising specially, novelties, promotion items, and I used to do Jamboree in the Hills, and I got some other clients that I've been dealing with for years. And any promotion items you need for any events, I have that.
Yeah, it's interesting because, you know, when you see people with you know, pens with their business name on it, or notepads, or different things like that, it oftentimes come through you.
Yes, yes. I represent 1,500 companies, but major of them, about 160 of them that I deal with all the time.
A lot of work, a lot of people to deal with.
Yes, a lot of stories behind them. It's been fun.
Well, I really appreciate you coming here on the show to talk about your good friend John Havlicek.
Yes.
My condolences to you and all of
Thank
his
you.
friends and family members, and thanks for talking with us about all these other legends, and including yourself. So.
Yes, and I'm planning to have a service in June up in Boston for John.
Well, that'll be nice.
So I wanted the public to know that.
Well, Gordie, I really appreciate being here. Thanks.
Appreciate
I shake your
you.
hand, but I got a little bit of allergies
I
going
can-
here, so I'll just say thank
It's
you.
okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. We need to take a break. When we come back, I'll be talking a little more sports. Stay with us here on the JB Bordas Show.
Sometimes bad things happen to good people. At Bordas & Bordas, when we see this, we do something about it. We can't prevent bad things from happening, but we can get justice when they do.
Bordas & Bordas, fighting for justice.
The Panhandle Difference.
I immediately called Panhandle Cleaning and Restoration to see if they could clean and restore my home. Not only did they do that, but they even made it more beautiful than it was before the fire. If anyone ever has a tragedy like ours, I highly recommend you call Panhandle Cleaning and Restoration.
Welcome back to the show. It's time to talk sports. And Let's start off in Pittsburgh and with the Steelers and the NFL draft. You know, Steelers, not a team that typically makes moves on draft day, but sure did this year. Traded up to the number 10 spot to pick inside linebacker Devin Bush from Michigan. The last time the Steelers traded up in the first round to pick a defensive player, they got a pretty good one, a guy by the name of Troy Polamalu. Of course, went on to have an unbelievable career with the Steelers. And, you know, Devin Bush, an outstanding pick. Just when you look at his ability to play all three downs on defense, he ran a 4.43 40-yard dash at the combine. Now, let's put that into perspective. You know, if you get a receiver, you would kind of expect they run a 4.4. To have an inside linebacker that can run a 4.4, that can cover the entire field, play all three downs, is the type of guy you build your defense around. And I've been saying on this show now for the past basically 6 months that people keep forgetting that they want to talk about Antonio Brown. They want to talk about Le'Veon Bell and him not being there last year. The biggest missing piece I felt was the missing Ryan Shazier in the middle of that defense. He was a guy they had drafted to kind of build the defense around for a decade. Of course, that horrible injury that he's suffered to his spinal cord, he's rehabbing and really wants to come back someday. But you know, there's a void there, and the Steelers were really able to fill that void by drafting Devin Bush. So I think a great move on draft day to go get him, and you know, I think he'll have an impact right away. Speaking of Ryan Shazier, Steelers placed him on the physically unable to perform list again this year, and there's significance to that. Because the Steelers did that, and they don't have to, by the way. They did put him on that list. That means he gets paid. If they hadn't put him on that list, he wouldn't have gotten paid. A lot of NFL players don't get paid if you're injured. The Steelers did that, and that's a really, really good move on their part. Good gesture of goodwill toward a guy that has given a lot to them. And, of course, he still tries to help teach the younger players and do things like that. Of course, and the Steelers also went out and got a receiver in the third round, Deontay Johnson, and one of the needs they needed to fill with the departure of Antonio Brown. And I thought another good pickup, a guy on the MAC to get a receiver in the third round. They think he can really do some things, and a little bit of a hidden gem there, perhaps. We'll see. And then cornerback Justin Lane out of Michigan State, a tall corner, another need that they had. And we'll see if he can perform right away. Artie Burns, they didn't exercise their fifth year for Artie Burns, so this will probably be his last year in Pittsburgh coming up. But they need a little bit of depth there. You got Joe Hayden on one side, but needs some on the other side. And then, you know, picked up a tight end. I thought they might with Jesse James leaving. Got Zach Gentry out of Michigan, who's 6'8". I mean, you know, be one of the tallest players in the NFL and be a big target. He needs to work on his blocking a little bit. He was formerly a quarterback before he got to Michigan, so he hasn't had a lot of years blocking. But overall, I think a really good draft for the Steelers that filled some needs that they have, got some solid players. Benny Snell, running back from Kentucky, provides some depth at the running back spot, you know, behind James Conner and Jalen Samuels. So I think the overall excellent draft for the Steelers, and was glad to see again them make that move in the first round. We'll see how it all unfolds, though, in the months to come. Training camp will be here before we know it in July. We'll keep talking about the Steelers in the months leading up to that. That's all the time that we have this week. I appreciate you joining in. Appreciate Gordie Longshaw being here. We'll see you again next time on the Jamie Bordas Show.